Welcome to Pop Nerdery. This is the show that is nerdier than hiring a contractor to give you an estimate for adding a bat pole and or cave to your newly purchased house. This is the place where you're allowed to have an opinion. I did that, Toph. I just don't tell my wife.
No, why would you? Why would you ever buy a house without one of those pre-installed? There's my first question.
We made a mistake, so I'm going to rectify
Clearly.
it. This Pop Nerdery is the place where you're allowed to have an opinion on anything in pop culture, but you got to have more than just a little bit to say. First, tonight, we're going to catch up on this week in nerd news. Then, Topher and I are going to do something we've been waiting to do for 22 episodes now. We're going to talk to you about Our Batman. Our Batman. The definitive version, the Pop Nerdery.
The authoritative one.
Of Batman. And then at the end, we're going to give you some pop culture recommendations for you to check out. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. My name is Dave. I'm your host for the night, while Brent is, caught in a holodeck simulation on the Starship Enterprise. And with me, as always, is my good friend Topher. How you doing tonight, Topher?
Good, Dave. I'm the podcast's favorite rapper's favorite blogger. Not yours or Brent's, but the actual living, breathing podcast.
Wonderful.
You got a couple different ways that you can catch up with us here at Pop Nerdery when you're not putting our voices in your ear holes immediately. The first is on the Twitters, at PopNerdery, POPNERDERY. We comment on things as they happen, @tag people inappropriately. I over hashtag, and I'm not going to apologize for that, so you're just going to have to learn to live with it.
Hashtag no apologies.
Absolutely. You got two ways to listen to the show. The first is on iTunes or your media player of choice. Jump over to the podcast section, fire up that search box, and type Pop Nerdery in there. You can find the show, rate it, review it, subscribe to it, love on it like a brand new puppy that you just brought home. Just slather it with affection. Second way is to whisper the name of your favorite dead Robin into the midnight darkness, and like the Batman himself, Dave Fultz will appear over your shoulder and podcast live to you.
I will do it. Toph, this week, there was not a whole lot going on. Which is kind of good news for us, so we can speed right through this damn thing and get to Batman.
Yes.
There were some things, some Netflix-related things that happened. We got episode titles for both Luke Cage Season 1 and Stranger Things Season 2. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about – it's just a great excuse to talk about Luke Cage. We haven't really done it too much just yet. But Luke Cage comes out on September 30th. They're going to drop the entire first season, and – I really could not be more excited. Daredevil Season 1 and 2, Jessica Jones Season 1 were both fantastic. We were big fans here. And Luke Cage, I really feel like they're going to have to do something crazy to disappoint me with Luke Cage Season 1.
I don't think there – well, I'm sure there's a way. If you can get George Lucas involved, then you can probably go ahead and ruin Luke Cage for me. But I'm kind of with you. Short of that, I really don't see this being bad. Jessica Jones, as we've fawned over in the past year, we both loved it a lot. And she's a very powerful character, which was awesome to see her get really her own stage to kind of be awesome on. Had one of the best villains that I can remember in a long time. Mm-hmm. But one of the standouts of that show and kind of this whole Netflix MCU as it is has been Luke Cage. And damn it, I want as much of this as I can put in my eyeballs as soon as possible.
Yeah, he. I know it was a kind of an exclamation after sex, but he said "Sweet Christmas" in Jessica Jones.
It was so good.
Yeah, and if you've seen the trailers, he is walking around in a hoodie with a hip hop music, just whomping all over people in Harlem. The cool thing, if you take a look back in our Twitter timeline at the Pop Nerdery Twitter, I retweeted they did like this little featurette about the episode titles and the soundtrack for Luke Cage. And they brought in some heavy hitters in order to make this thing work. They brought in Method Man and they brought in a couple of other guys to make this soundtrack feel as authentic as possible. And all of the episode titles are actually, I don't know, I am going to plead ignorance. I don't know Gangstar, but apparently all of the episode titles are track names from Hip Hop Legends Gangstar.
And if you're an old school hip hop head, that was almost as exciting as the fact that Luke Cage is here, because that's, like you were saying, this is not, I mean, there are a lot of artists they could have gotten that this would have been cool, but that lends a lot to kind of the authenticity that they're shooting for in this. And it was awesome that it wasn't, I don't know, B.O.B. or some up and coming rapper that they could have gotten a lot of press over, who has no credibility. So
yeah.
that felt like a really cool Easter egg.
I mean, I really love that some of the episode titles here are Suckas Need Bodyguards and Soliloquy of Chaos.
Yeah. If that doesn't sum up what's going to happen, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I can't wait. So Luke Cage, September 30th, we will binge. We will get back to you. Stranger Things Season 2, the episode titles for that and like a small teaser, I guess, where it was essentially just like the open to the show, and then they showed you the episode titles. I was trying to look at these titles and see if I could divine any meaning from them.
You and everybody else on the internet.
I know, right? So you finished Stranger Things, right?
Oh yeah.
And we didn't really talk about it too much on the show last week, did we?
No, I think it was one of our recommendations from a week or two ago. But
yes.
Yeah.
That was, I think it was Brent's in like episode 19 or 20.
I believe so.
Brent's recommendation. He hadn't seen it yet, but damn was he right.
Yeah.
As I was watching it, I was picking out little things. I was like, oh, that's E.T., or oh, that's from It, or oh, that's from Carrie.
Half of John Carpenter's work gets nods in there at various times. The whole thing is just a love letter to that era in that genre of films.
Oh yeah, yeah. You see some aliens in there. You see, yeah. It really is. The Duffer Brothers did a love letter to every Amblin film and every body horror whatever film that you found in the in the 80s. So some of these episode titles, we're not going to spoil season 1, so you don't have to hit the skip button as you're listening to this. But some of these episode titles, we have Mad Max. We have. I'm not going to read that one because it's kind of spoilery. We have The Palace, The Storm, The Pollywog. These things are all kind of, I don't know. They're very, very vague.
Yeah.
I'm reading them.
And I think that the same thing and I did the same thing where I went through and just was trying to imagine, I'm trying to decide how to discuss this without spoiling anything. It's the worst thing I'm trying to do all day.
Yeah.
Nope, I can't come up with a good way to talk about it. So I think if you watch season 1, we're going to get a big old dose of exactly what we didn't get a lot of in season 2 within season 1. And I think there's going to be some exploration there. And I'm taking some of these episode titles as potential locations. Yeah,
you did a really, really nice job of
I'm exhausted.
Avoiding spoilers there. You tiptoed all around anything.
I'm so tired right now.
I didn't prepare, Topher, that we were going to have to talk about and not talk about Stranger Things at the same time.
Yeah.
What I will promise you as a listener is that at some point, whether it's right before season 2 launches or once we've decided it's been long enough, we'll do a full spoiler discussion. But I want to wait for Brent to get back for sure before we do a deep dive into Stranger Things. So the other thing that happened this week that was like newsy was either today or yesterday, there was a rumor that came out that Daniel Craig, our reigning James Bond of 4 films, he is a veteran of 4 James Bond films, was offered $150 million to return as James Bond. That's crazy.
Because those movies could be terrible. I mean, I like him in the role and everything, but these movies could be awful. Now, will they make a ton of money? Yes, they're Bond movies. They really can't not. But Jesus, like that's an impressive outlay. And I can't, as you mentioned earlier, I can't decide it's because they really, really like him or that they're terrified of if we lose him that we're going to have to reshape Bond again. In a lot of the other Bonds, if you think Connery had a really long run.
So here's my
the
thing.
Other one who's not Connery. Shit.
Roger Moore.
Thank you.
Roger Moore's here.
Those are long runs for both of them, and I think they're afraid of getting it because Brosnan only did a couple,
Brosnan
2 or 3 or 4,
I think.
He did
Goldeneye, Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow, there was a third one, and then he did Die Another Day, the Halle Berry one.
Yeah, they're not memorable. There's no reason that we should be able to remember all of them specifically.
You know what? I actually legitimately liked Goldeneye, but we're not talking about Pierce Brosnan right now. And maybe I only liked it because of my N64.
You only liked it because of your N64.
Yeah. But I think the thing about Daniel Craig is these movies have proven to bring Bond into a new generation, right? To make Bond classy and gritty and whatever he needs to be in this, current generation of movies. And also they are crazy successful box office wise overseas and crazy successful in terms of product placement. There's almost no movie that does product placement better and more financially successful than a Bond movie.
No, it's brilliant. Whatever he drives becomes the most sold luxury car in that class without ever really trying.
Exactly. And the only time I've ever considered buying a Sony Vaio was while watching a James Bond movie.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully that wore off as soon as the movie was over, but shit, it was close.
I would assume that these are the last two that they would have Daniel Craig do. I personally have really loved Daniel Craig in the role. I loved Casino Royale and I love Skyfall. The other two are not quite as good.
That's great. It's still watchable. It's fine.
Yeah, Quantum, totally watchable. And the other one, the one that happened at like the Mexican Death Day parade, I guess. That was fine, I guess. But Skyfall was good. And Casino Royale, I think, was great. I think Casino Royale is honestly like my second or third favorite Bond movie of all time.
It's definitely in the top 10.
But he's 48 right now, today. Daniel Craig is 48 years old.
How old was Sean Connery? He was like 75 by the time he was done, for God's sakes.
He wasn't 75.
Born at age 50. I dare anyone to contradict that.
I think what I'm trying to say is these are probably the last couple that he's going to do.
Yeah.
He was like famously upset over the amount of like press that he had to do during the last one and said, hey, I'll never do this again. So this is the like put up or shut up moment of, is he going to stick to his guns or is he going to cave for the money? And you know what? I would do it for $145, Yeah,
honestly, they could call me and I'd do it for $130. Like, I'm not trying to negotiate against him, but I'll negotiate against him.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're listening, Sony, I mean, you could get two Bonds for the price of one. Toph and I would split $130.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll
do it as like a buddy cop thing.
Yeah. I'll be 008.
I know, you'll be 00 and I'll be 7. It'll work out perfectly.
All right. We all know, we almost don't have to say it at this point, but if you're asking us, who we want to be Bond instead, I mean, the answer is Idris Elba. If you don't let us have Idris Elba, I think I would go for like a Tom Hiddleston. He's a British guy.
Yeah. He's got that narcissist thing going. A joie de vivre.
The joie de vivre. The je ne sais quoi of a Bond.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, I guess my first choice is Idris Elba, my second choice is him, and my third choice is Cumberbatch.
Oh, yeah, you do Cumberbatch.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, if I can't get Idris Elba, then I usually just turn to Benedict at this point, so.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. It would be really badass if they offered $150 million to Sean Connery so that he could just come back and go, wah.
Listen here, Moneypenny.
Get off my lawn. All right, but what else happened? Spider-Man Homecoming. There's been a bunch of set photos that leaked. I am excited about Spider-Man Homecoming. I think that you're decidedly on the we've seen too many of these already bandwagon. Is that true?
I hope it's awesome because at that point I can disavow the whole rest of the franchise and just count this one. So I liked my Spider-Man in Civil War.
Yeah, he was great in Civil War.
It was a little annoying to me, but I think only because it's easy for us to forget that that's what the character really is supposed to be. He is like a teenager. He's supposed to be a little shit kind of a thing. So when they play that up, that's, and it was nice, I guess. We lauded Civil War for having some laughs mixed into the fights.
Right.
So, and that's something we've shit on DC for doing. So, if this whole movie is like that, it'll bum me out. Or if he turns into like emo Spider-Man, like the first movies did, and I think that's where the failing really came from. That will bum me out.
Yeah, I am glad for High School Spider-Man. I'm also very glad that in Civil War he didn't say things like "it's lit" or "you're basic." Like, don't date Spider-Man.
Basic.
Like yeah.
No.
The thing that came out this week was some people caught some set photos of Shocker, who is like a kind of a B-level Spider-Man villain. The main villain in this movie is supposed to be the Vulture, who is actually the first Spider-Man villain that there ever was, and the Vulture is supposed to be played like Michael fucking Keaton, which is awesome that he went from Batman to Birdman to the Vulture.
Yeah, that's a good progression. He's got a bird thing going.
I'm very excited about it. But the Shocker was I had an action figure from like the 1994 animated Spider-Man series.
Yeah.
So the Shocker was always one of my favorites because really all he is like I don't know, he looks weird, but he has these like gauntlets that shoot energy at people. He's pretty basic as a villain. And if you remember back to Amazing Spider-Man 2, they took Rhino and made him Paul Giamatti inexplicably in like a giant construction outfit. So you saw these Shocker pictures, and you know what? He looks like the fucking Shocker. He doesn't look like they didn't just like, you know, give him an emo face and, you know, and some
call it a day. You know, he looks like the Shocker. So you know what? We trust the MCU until the MCU gives us a reason not to trust it, and I'm going to go ahead and continue to do so. Yeah.
He looks badass. I mean, he's got like he's yellow, and he's got a brown vest, and he's got some gauntlets. He looks cool.
I'm fine with that.
Anyway, the last thing we're going to talk about, we don't really do it here all that often, but I feel like it's something I'd like to talk about a little bit more, is some technology news. And there's no better reason to jump back in than the release of a new iPhone. You know, a new iPhone seems to be like the cycle that we all live on. While Galaxy Notes are exploding in people's pockets and dorm rooms. Have you seen that?
All the time. All over the place.
Just like
it's no big deal, right?
Exploding, causing fires.
It's just something that you keep in your pants pocket next to your genitals. Why would that be a problem?
Yeah. It doesn't really matter if it lights on fire.
No.
All you lose is a testicle or two. Anyways, there's a new iPhone launching what we all assume is going to be next week. Apple's getting kind of beat up in the nerd and tech sphere for not innovating enough recently. But honestly, I'd rather they perfect the thing before they put it out. They were way behind on like Apple Pay and shit like that because they wanted to get it right. And I feel like I, as a old man, appreciate that from Apple at this point. There's nothing super exciting except they're going to get rid of the headphone jack is what I hear, which seems inconvenient to me now, but I'm sure they're doing it to help me for some reason.
Likely.
But right now, the GPS on my phone doesn't work because I dropped it on the ground really hard a couple of times. So I'm just happy to get a functioning phone back in my pocket.
Correct. Start there.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break here, listeners, and we are going to come back with a vengeance and talk about The Dark Knight.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Go to popnerdery.com/audible and sign up for a free trial to support the show and get hours of entertainment.
So by entertainment, do you mean like the acid reflux that I experience sometimes when I have a few too many nachos and sodies?
I want you to think about that and reverse it 180 degrees, and yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. With the free Audible trial, you're going to get 2 free audiobooks. So right there, those are words for your ears. After the trial ends, you get an audiobook a month for $14.95. You get 30% off any additional audiobook that you want. So when you're just craving them audiobooks and want to keep shoving them into your ears, this is the way you do it. Cancel at any time, finish the subscription, and the best part, you get to keep the books even if you cancel. Take that, Netflix.
Keep the books? Like I keep my Maylocks on the shelf? Pop Nerdery brought to you by Maylocks. Oh, no, sorry, wrong ad.
Audible. Go to popnerdy.com/audible to sign up for your free trial. Then tell your friends so that they can have audiobooks. Welcome back to the Pop Nerdery Podcast. Here in the B segment, we are absolutely going to deep dive into what might be Dave and my favorite topic of all time. Not ourselves, oddly enough, but the goddamn Batman.
Oh, boy.
What we produced to do tonight is to look at our 10 most definitive Batman stories. We're going to lay out the universe in not necessarily chronological order, but we are going to bookend these stories with year one as the important origin story, all the way up to the Dark Knight Returns as kind of the penultimate story. Falls outside of these ranges, but this is, it's our canon, damn it. And it's right. So if you've got arguments, come find me on Twitter. That's what Twitter's for. We have not discussed these in advance, short of the year one and Returns being kind of the capstones to this conversation. So we're going to actually have a live on tape conversation about what Batman stories we think are most important. And I think at some point, if someone wants to come through and count the number of times we say Batman in this segment, I will send you a prize. Just go ahead and at me, PopNerdery. Dave, we've said year one and returns, bookend. What would be your first inclusion into the canon?
Yes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give you 10 trade paperbacks that you can actually buy and hopefully give yourself a full picture of the Batman story from the beginning to the end. So we do have, like Toph said, year one is our definitive origin. Dark Knight Returns is our definitive, I guess, last Batman story. Even Dark Knight Returns kind of leaves it open at the end because the Batman never stops being the Batman. Let's be real.
Correct.
But we're going to allow Frank Miller to bookend the front and the back. So we're going to give you 8 more trade paperbacks by the time this is over. And I think, Toph, rather than give you a title of a trade, I want to talk to you about some milestones that I think need to be covered.
All right. I like that.
For me, I think we need to cover Dick as Robin specifically, the first Robin. Then we need to cover a little bit more of the Bat family. We definitely probably need to cover the death of Jason Todd at some point. And we need to cover Batman's time in the JLA.
Okay.
So we need to cover those things, in my opinion. I think that we probably need some Batgirl in there. We probably need some, Tim Drake at some point. But I think those are the things we have to cover. So what other milestones do you think? Is there anything that I missed in there?
And I think we'll end up on that with some Batgirl and some Oracle. I think that you can't have the Batman without the Joker. To me, that's always been a synergistic pairing of the two, and you have to explore that character. I think that truly, for me, kind of defines Batman, and it's definitely the villain that he's measured. The whole franchise is measured up against is, can you write some of the stories I think we'll talk about, as well as some of these, some of the really fantastic Joker stories that are out there.
I totally agree. I think that Rogues Gallery, you have to have a couple of these guys fully fleshed out in order to truly, kind of understand the Batman. So I guess if you're going to ask me for my first inclusion into this, I would say that my first inclusion would be Killing Joke. Killing Joke is, gives you what we would consider our definitive Joker origin. It gives you your definitive, the battle between Batman and the Joker never end. And it gives you a little bit of, story arc or development for Barbara, for Lieutenant Gordon, Commissioner Gordon.
I think you're right. I think the Killing Joke is definitely more iconic. The other one I considered that goes here is The Man Who Laughs, Ed Brubaker. Kind of the first big standoff between Batman and the Joker, and it gives a little... Killing Joke is great to describe how the Joker is created, or one of the myriad stories of how it happens. I think it's the one that I take as most canonical, but Man Who Laughed gives a lot of backstory into, the idea that much as Batman has to stay on top of his game and, had to learn how to do this, the Joker does the same. You can't just be insane and be as good at it as he is. Like, that doesn't work. You have to truly work at it. And I think The Man Who Laughs does a really nice job setting that up.
Yeah, Man Who Laughs is the one that really contradicts the Heath Ledger chaos is everything Joker.
Precisely.
It does show that he kind of, he plans it out and stuff like that. Okay, so let's say...
I do think Killing Joke is better. It does more for the canon than Man Who Laughs, but I think Man Who Laughs definitely bears talking about.
I think it adds some. And if we have an extra spot as we get done with this, it might find its way in. I think the next one that I kind of wanted to talk about was our introduction to Dick as Robin, and our introduction to the Rogues Gallery. So for me, I am going to take up 2 slots with Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's The Long Halloween and Dark Victory. So Long Halloween is, for me, the quintessential follow-up to year one. It shows how Batman goes from origin Batman to guy who has this rogues gallery. of people. And Dark Victory is the follow-up to that. So it continues the story, and it gives you your definitive Dick Grayson origin.
I definitely concur with Long Halloween. I might argue for Hush, which is another Jeff Loeb title in terms of cycling through the Rogues Gallery. It has some of the same gimmicks that Long Halloween does in terms of a madness script. In this one, it's more specifically orchestrated to kind of go through the Rogues Gallery, but it gives you a taste of a big slice of that pie in that universe.
Yeah, I also like Hush because it gives you a little bit more. It gives you a little bit more with Superman and his interaction with not just the Rogues Gallery, but also his allies.
Yes,
you get a decent look at kind of that interaction. If I had to lean toward Hush or Man Who Laughs, something that adds to the canon, I would lean toward Hush, and that kind of leans toward the end of the latter half. I do think if I'm going to have a definitive Dick Grayson origin as Robin, I'm going to go with Dark Victory. And
I think you're right for that. You like Robins more than I do.
I think I do. I really do. And we haven't really examined this before, but I do. I think that the Robins are a lot more critical to the Batman story than you probably do.
No, I think you're right. I just tend to I appreciate Alfred more in a support role than I do the Robins.
Yeah,
I just, I don't know in what world. Maybe if you're out there fighting crime all the time with the goddamn Batman, you feel like it's appropriate to run your mouth. But when I always read that, and it's written specifically for this way, and there's some writers and artists who have used this brilliantly. But it's meant to be a foil to kind of give sometimes the reader the chance to say things that you wouldn't say to the Batman.
Right.
But aside from that, I don't have a ton of use for that. I think this segues nicely into the one that always does get me, and I think that this is definitely on your list, is probably A Death in the Family.
Yes. I actually – so here's my thing. I have some thoughts on A Death in the Family, and I do think that it's important that we have Jason Todd represented.
He is a dick. However, the iconic scene still does get me.
Yes, he's a dick, but he is very much a character that exists to tell you more about the Batman.
Certainly.
Which makes him important to the canon.
Yes.
I think if we're gonna include any of the Robins, you have to include Dick, obviously.
Yep.
But you have to include Jason because Jason tells you a lot about the Batman. And I think if I were going to include a story for people to read now in modern times, they're not caught up in current canon. They're not alive in the mid 80s. I don't think I include Death in the Family. I think I include Under the Red Hood. So Under the Red Hood gives you that introduction, not an introduction, but a really good Black Mask story and a really good mob story. It tells you where Jason is now, and it also tells you the entire Death in the Family story. But it does it in a more modern way. And I don't know if you've read A Death in the Family recently, but it takes you to some pretty weird places where you're like caught in the Middle East, and there's a lot of like politics, like Desert Storm era politics that are going on.
Definitely. It does feel, I don't want to say dated, because it's not like we've exactly got the Middle East in a wonderful place where everyone's sharing cupcakes over the borders or anything, but
I think
it's a little more tied in there. The thing that I thought that was most important about it, aside from kind of obviously wrapping up that story arc with that Robin, was that, I mean, we both just discussed how we don't particularly like Jason Todd, and yet that death feels undeserved. There's no part of you that goes, well, okay, but we do get a good Robin now?
Yeah.
Like, instead, you're still just like, holy shit, that was a gut punch. And that's an impressive piece of writing, because no one particularly likes this character, and you're still just like, wow, that felt it. Okay, all the feels.
Yeah, and I do think that so I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, I know you know this, but I'm just gonna say it. The Jason Todd death came after like a call-in poll for people to call in and say, so like it did feel a little bit unearned when they did it, I'm sure. But you're right, when you read that scene in A Death in the Family, the brutality of it hurts because you think back to Batman 66, or you think back to, the old comics with Dick as Robin, and it feels like, ooh, he's probably 16, he's 17.
Yeah, that's a boy. That's
beat him to death with a crowbar.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the mid 80s really was the era for let's show you how evil and shitty the Joker can be.
Yeah, that kind of to me also marks some of the line of demarcation. And a lot of these stories, happened in the early 80s. And I think that it's no surprise that that's a lot of the stuff that fits our canon.
Yeah.
60s Batman is terrific. I watch it with my child. We love it. Cesar Romero's mustache is amazing, even under the grease paint. But that's not really my Batman.
I agree.
He's a mediocre detective at best, and mostly just has good puns. So I'm here for the puns. Let's not get me wrong. But we like a darker, a little more sinister Gotham in which the Batman lives, because that makes the danger feel way more real. It's not just like there's no chance these dudes are going to figure out how to do anything.
I agree. I totally agree. I think that when you talk about a darker, more sinister, more modern Batman, there are a couple of the New 52 stories that I do want to include.
Okay.
So I think the definitive story from the New 52 run was Court of Owls. It introduced a new villain. It added more breadth and depth to the history of Gotham. But I think the best one, in my opinion, that fleshed out not only Batman, but the Bat family and the modern relationship between Batman and Joker was Death of the Family. I loved that story. It revisited a lot of old Batman Joker like standoffs, and it kind of updated them in a modern way and made Joker scary in a way that he hadn't been for me since I read The Killing Joke.
Yeah, I think the one that I picked out of the New 52 is Black Mirror, Scott Snyder.
That was right before the New 52, but that one is kind of scary. Yeah,
it's on the cusp. Okay, yeah. I never remember.
That was if I would include it, that would be my definitive Dick as Batman story, because Dick is Batman in that one. Yeah,
and I there's some, I don't know. I was trying to find something that was more modern, because I looked and a lot of my stuff is older.
Yeah,
that's the one that I like. And there have been a couple times that we've gotten specifically year 100. I think bears mentioning it falls outside of our realm, and it's not. I wouldn't consider it in the Ultimate canon, but in the same way as Black Mirror, it does a great job of talking about the Batman as a mantle and not as a person necessarily, and that's an idea I like.
Absolutely, and I like that. I like that in anytime you get a cool Elseworld story about, hey, 200 years in the future, there is a Batman, but this is what it looks like, or something like that. It's always something worth visiting for me.
And it definitely obviously pulls a lot from year one. I mean, even so much as in the title when it's year 100. Like the whole idea is this is the same world as year one. It's just simply 100 years later, and things aren't really that different.
Right. When we started the talk, we talked about we have to cover Dick as Robin. Yep. We have to cover the Bat family a little bit.
Yep.
And we have to cover hhis time with the JLA. I know
and
that
I'm going to jump you here, and I'm going to tell you what you're talking about. Ask you, Tower of Babel.
I was going to ask you. Here's my thing, Toph. I was going to throw up that meatball for you to swing.
I saw you winding up, and even before you tossed the pitch, I was charging the mound with a bat, ready to go for it.
Yes.
Because that was the one that I looked at of all of the JLA stories, and there are some good ones. Let's not short sell them a little bit, but this is the one to me that stands out. And it's like this is absolute canon.
It is the Batman story. It shows you Batman's relationship to the JLA, his partnership out of necessity, his fellowship with those people, but also his unending paranoia and constant pragmatism. He has to be ready for this.
And because he doesn't fit, he's not a superhero per se.
Right.
He's a dedicated guy with a lot of money who does some amazing things, but he has no superpower.
Yeah.
To wit, and so he has to have a plan at all times. If any of these genetic abnormalities, aliens, or out-and-out mutants go wrong, he's just a guy who's got to figure out how to take them down.
Right.
And that, aside from just being a fascinating concept, I think that's a big part of the Batman mantle that has to be accepted. Is like he's not a superhero; he has no power, so he's got to figure out other ways to deal with this kind of shit.
Yeah, Batman's job, when it all comes down to it, is that he has to be smarter than the problem.
Yes.
He has to be, and that's honestly the reason why both of us love the character so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. I think Tower of Babel when you read it today, it does. Some of the plot points seem a little bit silly, but the overall message fits. And you know what? When you read the JLA stories from that era, JLA wasn't a book written for 35-year-olds jaded and cynical.
No.
It was written for teenage comic fans. That's what it was written for.
It's real punch 'em up, outlandish shit superhero books.
Yeah.
And so when taken in that context, that is completely different.
But and it is still a smart puzzle of a story. Like they give you clues so that hopefully the reader is following along and trying to figure it out as Batman's plan is revealed to us.
Right.
Which is, I mean, that's what comics are in the best of them to begin with.
Yeah.
So so here we go. Let's nail down a couple of the signposts that we do have. So we have Year One to start. We have Dark Knight Returns to finish. I feel like we put down Long Halloween as the follow-up to Year One, and I feel like we put down Dark Victory as the definitive Dick as Robin origin.
Yep,
so that gives us 4 of our 10. We also have Killing Joke. Killing Joke is our Batman Joker story. I feel like I'm going to eventually have to put these in order because I'm that anal retentive. But we have Killing Joke, and would you say, in your opinion, Killing Joke falls before or after Tower of Babel?
I'd probably put it before, and then Babel in that 5th slot.
Okay, so Tower of Babel. Okay. And then if we are going to have a Jason Todd slot, we probably put either Death in the Family right before Killing Joke or Under the Red Hood right after Tower of Babel. But
I think you're right. I like Under the Red Hood. I think that's the more definitive story.
All right. So
Plus it gives us some other characters we don't get in a lot of other books necessarily.
That's true. And I think it shows you kind of the scale at which Batman is fighting his war in Gotham. Because there are so many times where Batman stories go crazy because they feel like, and this happens in the movies quite a bit, where they feel like every problem has to be world threatening in order for it to matter for the viewer, reader, whatever.
And sometimes it's just Gotham is a bad place.
Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of our 10. And we have fulfilled all of our milestones. We have our Robin. We have our both of our Robins, I guess. We have our JLA. We have a very solid list. We have some Joker in here. I do feel like you mentioned Hush earlier. I feel like we got to add Hush so that way we can cover not all of the rest, but most of the rest of the Rogues Gallery.
I think so. And Hush just does such a brilliant job of that.
So Hush would fall technically right before Under the Red Hood on our list. Mm-hmm. And then I really do think we should have a New 52 story on there. Like I said, I like Court of Owls, but it kind of stands alone and doesn't necessarily add to our canon. So I would go Death of the Family. It gives you another Joker story. It gives you a little bit more depth to the Bat family. It gives you a lot of Alfred. Alfred has a really nice role in that story. So I would put that between Hush and Dark Knight Returns, Death of the Family. And then what else? We have
now I have a tremendous problem because we have 1 slot left, and I think 2 incredible books.
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, we got 1 slot left.
I know. And I'm torn between 2 of my favorite Batmans are still left here. Son of the Demon.
Okay.
Which is just a fantastic Ra's al Ghul story.
Yes.
And then the other villain that I put up in I think they're a trio of amazing Batman villains with the Joker, Ra's al Ghul when he's there, and then Bane. We have to talk about Knightfall.
Yes, we do have to talk about Knightfall.
It is a trilogy. I'm including it as Knightfall since that you can buy it that way. You can get it's Knightfall, Night Quest, and Night's End. Night End, I think. Right. Knightfall is one of it's what most of Dark Knight Rises was built out of. Came out of Knightfall. You get the iconic Bane breaking Batman over his knee. Yeah, I mean, there are just so many scenes that came straight from that book onto the screen, and that was probably I like that movie well enough. It's fine. It's better than the third one, certainly. But truly, one of the joys of my adult life was seeing something that I read as a kid that really did finally come to life. We got a Batman that basically just took Knightfall and put it on the screen in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I like Knightfall. I also like Son of the Demon. Son of the Demon, you get your first like proto Damian Wayne sighting. And I like Damian Wayne.
Damian Wayne's fine. I'm not really there for the Damian Wayne. I'm, Talia and Ra's al Ghul is what I'm here for.
Yeah, and I think there's a scene in Son of the Demon where Batman has his cowl on and is shirtless, sword fighting Ra's al Ghul, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever seen, and also one of my favorites.
It's super crazy, but also super fantastic.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to suggest is that maybe we make a little room here. I don't know what exactly we eliminate, because there was an extra story that I had as well on my bench. And it was let me grab it off my shelf so I can get the name of the artist and the writer correct. Okay, so this story, maybe we can take one of the books off our current list and replace it, so that way you have to make the Sophie's choice between Son of the Demon and Knightfall. So here's my addition. It's a story written by Scott Beatty, Chuck Dixon. The artists are Marcos Martin, Javier Pulido. This is Batgirl and Robin Year One. It is two separate stories, but they do sell it as one trade. Yeah, so we could replace Dark Victory, which we had included as our definitive Robin origin.
Yeah.
We could replace that and get both a Dick as Robin and a Barbara as Batgirl origin in one book.
I think that's worth it.
There we go. So I'm going to eliminate Dark Victory, and I'm going to add Batgirl, Robin, Year One. The art on this thing is beautiful. The story is slightly less dark than Dark Victory, but it's still a mob story at its heart. It still has silly villains, and it still gives you all of the the wonderful Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon that I think our list was missing a lot of Batgirl here.
It definitely is, and that's not through any slight on my part. As we discussed earlier, I have little use for support staff that's not Alfred. Yeah. Even including, and I guess 1A is Alfred, 1B is Jim Gordon, and everything else after that is just background filler for me. So, no slight on Batgirl there. She definitely is important and deserves her spot within the canon. Yeah. So I agree.
Well, in this story also, it has a really nice kind of Two-Face story as part of it. So we get a little bit more Two-Face.
That's worth bringing in.
Okay.
All right. Before I have to make the worst choice of my entire life, I want to mention two stories that fall kind of outside of our parameters, but I think are
worth it.
Some of my favorite Batman stories, I guess, would be how it works out. Since we selected Year One as kind of the start to Batman, and we both have moaned at length about how many times we have to see the origin story, I left this off, but Grant Morrison's Batman Gothic is one of my favorites. It's a really early days, school stuff. It's a classic detective story. It's got a little bit of the thriller horror bent that like Long Halloween or Hush have. So it's a little weird at some points, but that's what you're going to get sometimes with Grant Morrison. And
that's what you're going to get at all times with Grant Morrison.
Yeah, I was trying to soft play that for the audience and not freak them out. But yeah, pretty much. And I love him for it. Don't get me wrong. That's why I think there's a lot of Morrison on this list, without a doubt. The other one that I actually really enjoy, and sometimes it makes me feel a little bit guilty just because it was, I don't want to say it was created just to sell books, but Gotham by Gaslight is Victorian era Batman. Yeah. It's just fun. I mean, he's in London. There's like a Jack the Ripper type character on the loose. Yeah. Batman is an amazing detective. It's fun to go find it. It's a fun mystery story set in a weird setting. It doesn't fall within my canon, but I think it's definitely there in terms of, and you and I complain about this often, Batman is the world's greatest detective and doesn't get to show that off enough. And this one really is a detective story, really specifically. Yeah, I agree. And I mentioned Court of Owls before, the New 52 story, but he really does get to flex those detective muscles in that as well. And that's why I love that story as well. So here we go, Toph. I'm going to make you choose between Son of the Demon and Knightfall. And I'm gonna
put in a little envelope, a little imaginary envelope here.
Right.
You're going to have to do a little Johnny Carson Karnak. I have a favorite of these two stories. One that I think deserves to be in the canon. The other, I feel less excited about. Let's see if you get it right.
I'm going to go for Knightfall.
Oh, see, you and I are the opposite on this one.
Son of the Demon?
Yeah, I think Ra's al Ghul, if you're not going to pick the Joker or Two-Face, Ra's al Ghul is the definitive Batman villain that I want to see stories about. But you know what? Since we had Tower of Babel, we do have a Ra's al Ghul story on the list. So
that's true.
We're going to go with Knightfall.
I think Knightfall. Only the Damian Wayne is really what pushed me over the end line in the end. Not that can't be compelling or interesting or anything else, but it is. I almost feel like that part of that book tries a little too hard. That book is so interesting on its own. The story is so compelling and fascinating. I don't need that like as a hook or as a story driver to keep me interesting or to make me feel like that oh shit moment. And Knightfall is one of my favorites simply because, and this happens in a couple different places, but I think this is the best example of the broken Batman, the Batman who really does a lot of evaluating why he's doing this. It's, he's way past the point where he just feels like he's cleaning up crime. This has become a psychosis, which again leads to the perfect synergy with the Joker, who has a psychosis that's going in the opposite direction. But Knightfall does a great job of really, like, he's just gotten the absolute shit beat out of him. Batman is losing on a pretty regular basis throughout this book. Yeah. And he has a lot of time to think about why he is the Batman and explore a lot of those motivations. So
I also think, I think the thing that Knightfall does a really good job of, and a lot of the best Batman stories do, is when they examine, is Batman the mask or is Bruce Wayne the mask at this point? Right. And I think Knightfall does a fantastic job of that. So, and
we do get the other best thing about Knightfall is we do get that little bit of Azrael in something that I think maybe we had all hoped for a long time just to see. And it's Batman just killing villains. Yeah. In my secret heart of hearts, I know that Batman doesn't kill, but every once in a while, like there's something really satisfying about watching him just dismantle people.
He really is. It really is like a Punisher Batman. That's what Azrael really is.
It really is. So, and it's good that Bruce Wayne regains the cowl and takes it back. However, it's just really satisfying for that span of pages just to watch a Batman who has no fucks left to give whatsoever.
I agree. So chronologically, does Knightfall come first or Tower of Babel come first? I honestly don't. So Knightfall goes first.
I believe so.
So for our listeners, this is our definitive Pop Nerdery Batman canon. I'm so excited. It took us 22 episodes to get here, but we tossed Brent into a Sarlacc pit, and now
Brent really never should have taken any kind of hiatus from this podcast. Because guess what we're doing next week is we're going to reorder the top 10 and add a bunch of new ones in here. I'm sorry, listeners. I'm so sorry.
When Brent is away, Toph and Dave will play. So first up, year one. This is Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, your definitive Batman origin. Number two, Long Halloween, which is Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale. It gives you your introduction to a lot of the Rogues Gallery and kind of our transition into introducing all those characters. Number three, Batgirl Robin, year one. This is by Scott Beatty, Chuck Dixon. It gives you both your origin for Dick and your origin for Barbara, Batgirl. Then we go Killing Joke. Killing Joke gives us our definitive Joker origin and our definitive Batman Joker endless confrontation origin. The kind of thing, Killing Joke for me is the definitive Batman Joker story. It gives you both of their motivation and it shows you why it will never, ever, ever end. Then we have Knightfall. We just talked about Knightfall at length. Then we have Tower of Babel, which is our Batman's relation to JLA story. That's Mark Waid. Mark Waid is a superstar. You should read everything that he writes. But Tower of Babel specifically. Then we have Under the Red Hood. Under the Red Hood gives you a little bit more of mob life in Gotham. I believe that's written by Judd Winick. Judd Winick. Gives you your Jason Todd story, your Jason Todd death. And it gives you kind of a little bit more status quo of where the Bat universe is at that point. Then we have Hush. Hush is, I believe, Jeff Loeb again, right? And Jim Lee.
So.
Yeah, Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee for Hush. Hush is, I don't know, if you've never read it, it gives you a little bit more background into Bruce's childhood and a full look at all of his allies and his rogues gallery. It's a very fantastic, kind of look at the overall Bat universe. And then we end things out with Frank Miller, as it was meant to be. Dark Knight Returns. So that is our Bat canon. How do you feel, Toph?
I feel really good about that, and now I just kind of want to spend the rest of the night reading Batman and doing nothing else.
Legitimately, I'm going to go reorder my bookshelf, and I'm going to go start on this.
Put the canon 10 at the front and reorder everything else after.
Exactly.
I love it.
There are a zillion other Batman stories, and if you want a good place to start to find like one-offs, anything that is titled Legends of the Dark Knight usually are pretty good, like 3-story arcs to go look. But if you want 10 trade paperbacks to buy, if you only have $50 to spend, go get these 10 because it'll give you kind of the Bat canon.
Yeah. So, if you've got thoughts, opinions, how we got this wrong, I think we'll argue with you. So if you'd like to do that on Twitter's @PopNerdery, come tell us what we left out. I'm sure there's something we missed, and tell us, also how you agree and how much you're loving the stories that you're now reading with that. We're going to be back in a minute with some recommendations that I promise probably won't be Batman, although I can't swear to that. So I guess you'll have to stick around to find out. Today's show is brought to you by Amazon. Go to popnerdy.com/Amazon, shop as you normally would, get the same Amazon you know and love while you get to support Pop Nerdery.
So, Toph, next time you recommend a giant coffee table book about the Coen brothers, I can go to popnerdery.com/Amazon
and buy 2 copies. Pop Nerdery is part of the Amazon Associates program. It means you get the same selection and low prices of Amazon you know and love. If you're a Prime member, you get the exact same 2-day shipping that you already compulsively buy things when you're shopping, and you support Pop Nerdery. That's it. This is simple.
Click. Oh, sorry, Toph. I was already bookmarking popnerdery.com/Amazon.
Dave, you did something right then. But bookmark popnerdery.com/Amazon in your favorite browser today. And remember, every time you're going to Amazon to compulsively buy things, popnerdery.com/Amazon.
All right. Welcome back to the PopNerdery Podcast. Topher and I have sufficiently calmed down from our Batman high that we had during the B segment. Just enough so that we can give you some pop culture recommendations. Topher is going to start, and then I'm going to finish us out tonight. Toph, what do you have for me?
A lot of times people ask me how I have time to watch and read as much stuff as I do. The reality is that I tend to multitask, and I'm watching or reading something while I'm doing something else.
Absolutely.
And that something else happens to be Sid Meier's Civilization 5.
You have to be kidding me. I downloaded this game. I literally just downloaded it and started playing it for the first time last week.
I have terrible news for you. I've opened up my Steam account and I've looked. I have logged 1,200 hours playing Civ 5.
Holy shit.
Now, to be fair, I will start a game in the morning on a Saturday and leave it running all day and come back. It is a turn-based game so that you can actually do that. If once your turn is completed, you can step away without anything occurring. Yeah. So often Civ 5 is running in the background, and I may have left it open over an entire weekend. But 1,208 hours is the total that I've. It is
here. So. Like I've never played a Civilization game before this. I've always been instead of a turn-based strategy guy, I've been a real-time strategy guy. So I always played like Command and Conquer and some of the World War II RTSs. But
Company of Heroes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Company of Heroes is my favorite one. But I do love. I love me some turn-based strategy. I never really thought I would, but I got into board games, and spoilers, I'm going to talk about a board game. But I got into board games with my family, and Civ is essentially it's a video game board game, and you're playing a game with limited resources, and the rules of the game are your opponent, as opposed to having to play against find 8 people to play Pandemic or whatever.
Exactly. And, I've had Civ games that have lasted me a month, 2 months of playtime before. Right. The nice thing about Civ is that it really kind of is very open-ended. You can win the game in numerous different fashions. Yeah, if you want to just wipe everyone out, you can set the win condition to just wipe everyone out. However, if you want to do cultural, scientific, there are a lot of different ways to win. So it's almost like Dave and I can be playing Civ 5 at the same time and be playing really two entirely separate games with totally separate objectives. And
Absolutely.
That's what gives it an amazing amount of replayability. So Civ 5 has been out for quite some time. Civ 6 drops in late October of this year, I believe, with new updated civs and everything else. And I'm excited for that. However, it's going to be hard push to replace my beloved Civ 5, quite frankly.
Well, honestly, what pushed me to buy it was on Amazon. I was able to get it for a $10 digital download.
Oh, yeah. And that's the nice thing with 6 coming out soon. Civ 5 is going to drop sharply in price. And I don't know what I paid for it. I don't care if I paid $80 for it. At 1,200 hours, I am well back on my investment of whatever money I spent there.
Like, so 2 weeks ago, I bought the new Madden, and and this week I bought Civ 5 for $10. I've already played Civ 5 3 times as long as I played the new Madden.
Yeah, it's I've played a lot of games for a long time, but Civ 5 probably is the hallmark since it was released of the game that it has frequent rotation at my house.
Yeah, and you're right. You can multitask. I can watch Season 2 of Stranger Things and play Civilization at the same time.
That is the way that I unwind a lot of evenings with a tasty beverage, a little Civilization, and something else going on. That's why you buy 2 monitors, right? You put Civ 5 on one and you put something else on the other and you call it a day.
Absolutely. Wow. I can't believe that our lives intersected in that way.
It's so weird, Dave. It's basically like we're the same human being after we just talked about Batman for an hour and a half together.
Yeah, we have synchronized.
Never mind the fact that we're also wearing the same colored shirts tonight.
We are, and both drinking bourbon. It's getting weird in here tonight, guys.
Dave and I are the same person.
My recommendation, Toph, is something that you should take to your next game night or take to your next night hanging out with like couple friends. This is a game. It's a board game, but it's a game that you can play with your fantasy football draft buddies. And you can play with your wife and her 2 girlfriends, or you can play with a giant group of 10 people that are board game fanatics. This game is called Codenames. It's by a board game designer who is apparently very famous called Vlada Chvátil.
Oh, sure.
Let me say that one more time. It's Vlada Chvátil. This guy's name has quite a few vowels in it. Essentially the way the game works is there are 25 words set out in a grid, and your goal is to get your partner to guess some of those words by saying a code word or a code name. So, for example, if you and I are on a team, Topher, and the 2 of the words on the board that I'm trying to get you to guess are tennis and Wimbledon and hair, I might say Serena to get you to guess those 3 words all at the same time, right? So they are the way that this game works is that the best thing about the game, I guess, is that anyone can pick it up, and they can pick it up in 30 seconds. It's a super fun game just to throw in your duffel if you're going to go away for a weekend, because you can play it while you're drinking, you can play it while you're eating, you can walk away for 10 minutes and come back, and it's not too complicated. It takes 30 seconds to set up. It's a board game for non-board game geeks.
I like that.
Yeah. So
if I was going on to a vacation to the remote New York woods coming up in a few weeks, this sounds like something that I might want.
Absolutely. At a minimum, you need 4 players.
I have those.
So that's the only thing you need. 4 players. They're all going to be smart enough to figure it out.
Yes.
I do think that when you play with your wife or you play with your brother, it's a little bit easier than playing with a stranger because you have like inside jokes and shit like that.
Sure.
But that only makes the game a little bit more fun.
Yes.
So
I like that a lot.
So the game is called Codenames by a guy named Vlada Chvátil. And you can actually
Great name.
You can get it on Amazon, but at this point it's popular enough. This is not a recommendation for board game nerds. They've known about this for years at this point. But you can get it at Target. That's how mainstream this thing is. But I thought that it might be something that you want to pick up before your next vacation, guy.
God, that's unfortunate because I've got a vacation coming up and a new game shop just opened literally a block south of where I work. I guess I have to go in there now. I mean, that right? Like, I can't not do that. That would be insulting to you.
Exactly. And what you can do is you can bore them with our Batman canon when you go in there. Hey guys.
I'll just play it. I'll play the episode while we're playing Codenames. It's gonna be fantastic. This is gonna be the best vacation ever for me. My family's gonna hate it, but God, yeah, this is gonna be the best vacation ever.
So that's what we're here for. That's what Pop Nerdery is for. To talk about Batman and to give sweet pop culture recommendations. So that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you for listening to episode 22. As a reminder, please join the conversation on Twitter. We are at PopNerdery, POPNERDERY. Spelling is difficult after this much bourbon. But you can also visit us at PopNerdery.com. All of our episodes are archived there. Please do rate and review us on iTunes. It helps with the visibility of the show. You can follow me at Dave Foltz. You can follow Topher at The Hospital Ball. Until the presidential election and college football season are over, we do not recommend it.
Yeah, just for your own safety, don't do it.
Just don't. Follow us at Pop Nerdery. Come and talk to us about some stuff there.
Finger guns. Oh my God, that was so fun. That was so good.
That was awesome.
That makes me so happy. Oh God, no, I seriously, I just want to go read these 10 books now. I just want to start reading those and the ones that I left out. God, yes.
Oh man, that was awesome.
I love that.